Oakland, California, the search for power began on the streets. Blacks had little say in how their community was run. In particular, many questioned the role of the police.
The police throughout the black communities in the country were really the government. We had more contact with the police than we did the city council. The police were universally disliked.
The size of the mostly white police force was increasing. So were complaints of police brutality. Influenced by freedom struggles in the South and in Third World nations, in 1966, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale formed the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, a symbol taken from a Lowndes County, Alabama political organization. Armed with law books and with guns, the Black Panthers monitored the actions of the police in the black community.
I remember one of these first events when we got out of the car. We saw policemen, making an arrest of some kind, about 20 or 30 people in the community standing to the side watching. And the black folks, one of them says, "Hey, who are these people? Hey, man, this guy got, hey, man, I'm going to move out of here. These guys got guns and stuff like that."
They were out looking at what the police were doing. We had officers stopping a car, and then we would have a carload full of these Black Panther people pull up behind them and watch them and see what they were doing. They were looking at what the police were doing.
We would follow the police around, and when the police would arrest or detain someone, we would read their rights to them.
And it came down to some point where the policeman says, "What are you doing with those guns?" And Huey says, "Well, we got ours to defend ourselves and to observe you." And the police, "You have no right to observe me." And Huey, with all this law study, because he was in night law school at the time, California State Supreme Court ruling states that everyone has a right to observe a police officer carrying out his duty as long as they stand a reasonable distance away, and a reasonable distance was constituted in that particular California Supreme Court ruling as 8 to 10 feet. I'm standing approximately 22 feet from you. I will observe you, carry out your duty, whether you like it or not. And the black community saying, "Well, go ahead on and tell it."
The boldness of the Panther actions attracted young blacks, many in their teens. Carrying loaded firearms in public was a well-protected legal right in California. But with the emergence of the Black Panthers, state officials introduced legislation to outlaw loaded firearms within city limits. May 1967, in protest, the Panthers traveled to Sacramento, the state capital.
We arrived there, all these black men and women, 24 males and 6 females with guns. And Ronald Reagan, then the governor, was on the lawn with 200 future leaders of America, 12 and 13 and 14-year-old kids. And these kids started leaving his session on the lawn and coming to see us. And these young white kids thought we were a gun club.
Knowing the media would be there, the group of men and women then entered the Capitol building.
Heavily armed, whether their weapons are loaded or not, nobody seems to know.
Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Who's under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? Place him under arrest. Am I under arrest? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest. If I'm under arrest, I'll come. If I'm not, don't put your hands on me.
Is this the way the racist government works? Don't let a man exercise his constitutional rights?
If my sweater's ripped, you will get...
I'd like to make a statement now with this respect. Statement of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense on the Mulford Act now pending before the California legislature. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls upon the American people in general and the black people in particular to take full note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people.
A nation that had grown used to the nonviolent civil rights movement was now confronted with new images of black protests. Later, at a Sacramento service station, news cameras documented the continuing debate over law and guns.
Ain't no sawed-off, that's a riot shotgun just like yours.
You don't know the Constitution, right?
Sure we do. We're well aware of the Constitution.
You have no right to take my gun away from me. You break the Constitution right.
The pamphlet says that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls on the American people in general to to take careful note of the racist California legislature. Why do you believe the legislature is racist?
Don't you know? You're a part of it, and you're obviously, it's a white system. It's obviously where we're at.
Do you believe everything that's in that pamphlet?
Pamphlet speaks for itself.
The Black Panther Party's style and dramatic actions captured the attention of the media. Yet the Panthers often disagreed with the way they were portrayed.
The Examiner made a report back here in the last Sunday's paper that we were anti-white, that we hold no bones, this is a quote, pick no bones about being anti-white. This is a bold-faced lie. We don't hate nobody because of their color. We hate oppression. We hate murder of black people in our communities. We hate the gross unemployment that exists in our communities. We hate black men being taken off into the military service to be fighting for racist, decadent American promise us freedom.
To present their story and their program for social change, the Black Panthers created a national newspaper. Language and art were important tools of the new party.
I knew that images had to be changed. I know sociologically that words, the power of the words stigmatize people, and we felt that the police needed a label other than that fear image that they carried in the community. So we used the pig as a rather low-lifted animal in order to identify the police, and it worked.
Some feared the reaction that the Panthers' stance might provoke.
We'll just have to get guns and be
My parents or my neighbors were kind of reluctant, kind of standoffish in their attitudes towards the Black Panther Party, because here you had a new dynamic kind of organization coming out doing things that never had been done in the history of this country before. Carrying guns, standing up to the police, standing up to the power structure.
Eldridge Cleaver, who had gained fame from his writings in prison, was the chief spokesman for the party.
And we feel that the police must be brought under control by any means necessary, including through force of arms. And we have never bit our tongue about that. We say it now loud and clear. We will always say it. We're not afraid to say it, that these racist Gestapo pigs have to stop brutalizing our community, or we're going to take up guns, we're going to drive them out.
As the Black Panther Party grew, so did tensions with police. In October of 1967, a year after the party's formation, Huey Newton was shot in the stomach in a confrontation with police. Police officer Herbert Haynes was also seriously wounded. Officer John Fry died from gunshots believed to be from a police revolver. With the death of a policeman, government pressures on the young organization intensified. Newton was charged with first-degree murder. He maintained he had been framed.
In America, black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people or any other colonized people, because we're brutalized. The police in our community occupy our area, our community, as a foreign troop occupies territory.
The Panthers called themselves a revolutionary organization. The 10-point program was their blueprint for change.
And we wrote out this program. We want power to determine our own destiny in our own black community. Immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people was point number 7. The right to have juries of our peers in the courts, what have you. We summed it up. We wanted land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace.
The Black Panthers distributed free food and later developed a free breakfast program for children.
Good morning. Good morning. I can't hear you. Good morning. Good morning. Black is beautiful. Free to it. Said I want you free. Free to it. Black is beautiful. Free to it. Said I want you free. Free to it. Black is beautiful. Free to it.
The idea was obviously twofold: for the specific purpose of serving those people who were directly benefited by our programs, but also secondarily to influence the minds of people to understand not only that the Black Panther Party was providing them this, but more importantly, that if they could get food, that maybe they would want clothing, and maybe they want housing, maybe they'd want land, and maybe they would ultimately want some abstract thing called freedom.
Around the country, particularly in urban areas, young black men and women formed local chapters.
The party grew much too rapidly because many of the young people were very enthusiastic about the guns and about the berets, but they knew little about the community programs that were really our reason for existing.
The growing party still faced the dilemma of having its leader, Huey Newton, in prison. Court proceedings attracted national attention, bringing support to the Panthers from an alliance of white and black political organizations.
You're obviously in good spirits, Huey. Why?
Because I have the people behind me, and the people are my strength.
Huey's mother's here. Newton. This is the Black Mother.
February 17, 1968. Stokely Carmichael, James Foreman, H. Rap Brown, leaders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, now joined forces with the Black Panther Party in their call for revolution.
And so in talking about Brother Huey Newton tonight, we have to talk about the struggle of black people, not only in the United States, but in the world today, and how he becomes part and parcel of that struggle, how we move on so that our people will survive America.
See, it's no in-between. You're either free or you're a slave. There's no such thing as second-class citizenship. The only politics in this country that's relevant to black people today is the politics of revolution. None other.
April 6, 1968. A gun battle on the streets of West Oakland. 5 men were wounded, 3 police officers and 2 Panthers. A third Panther, Bobby Hutton, age 17, was shot to death.
Black people are now to organize in a fashion where we have maximum retaliation against all forms of racist, police brutality, and attacks.
What changes have there been in the Black Panther Party since the gunfight last weekend?
What you mean, what changes? We have a black man that's dead, murdered by pigs. That's a change.
Here were men who were saying, listen, we are willing to take charge of our lives. We're willing to stand up. We're willing, I mean, there was the appeal that Malcolm had in many ways. They had a certain subjective appeal to my psyche and to my emotional need to say, yes, there were men in this world who cared, black men, who cared about the community and wanted to do something and were willing to take it to the last degree.
In the fall of 1968, 2 years after the party's founding, Huey Newton was convicted of manslaughter in the death of police officer Fry, a conviction which was later overturned. With chapters in 25 cities, government surveillance was increasing. The membership of the Black Panther Party had reached several thousand and was growing.
It was a battle. It was a struggle. And I think we rooted ourselves in the sense that we began to get millions of black folks to really look at where we were coming from and our stand against the power structure. Now, a lot of people call revolution a confrontation. Really, what you and I meant by revolution was a need to revolve more political power and economic power back into the hands of the people. That's really what revolution is.
Left face, forward march.
In a forest grove not far from the nation's capital,
For God, for God, for country, for country,
a group of men and women gather.
for race, for race, For Klan. For Klan.
As the light fades, they enact a ritual over a century old, but as fresh and searing as the flame they ignite.
Klansmen, the fiery cross.
A cross on fire. They are known as the Invisible Empire for a reason. They thrive in secrecy, almost never permitting outsiders access. Who are they?
I could be your neighbor. You don't know who I am. You could think the world of me, but yet, if you see me in this hood and knew who I were, your whole thoughts could change.
I've been a fireman. I've been in the Navy.
The people wearing these robes walk among us.
If you want to be in the Klan, fight for the Klan. I fight for it 7 days a week.
Witness the Ku Klux Klan this summer
White power!
in Martinsville, Virginia.
White power! White power!
And in Tupelo, Mississippi, a couple of weeks ago, a similar scene.
White power!
Over the past 4 months, Nightline has been granted rare access to the resurgent Klan. Their rituals, their people, their message of racial segregation.
If we do not protect our race and protect our people, they're going to destroy us. They're going to kill us.
To get to the heart of it, we headed south to meet the Grand Dragon of the Mississippi White Knights of the KKK. The Clavin made infamous in the film Mississippi Burning.
You already been told once, Nick.
It's impossible not to think of what once happened here, the territory scarred by the battles of the Civil Rights era.
A Klan bomb ripped apart Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church, killing 4 children attending Bible class.
So we're in Birmingham, Alabama. And just down here is the jail where Martin Luther King Jr. wrote the famous letter from a Birmingham jail. Along the way, we make a stop at the Southern Poverty Law Center, where Mark Potok and his colleagues have been fighting the KKK in courtrooms and classrooms for decades. Many of the Klan's people we've talked to say Barack Obama has been our single most effective recruiting tool in the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, I think there's some truth to that. Immediately after Obama was elected, we saw 2 of the largest hate websites in the country crash.
Potok told us that by the late 80s, the Klan had dwindled to a few hundred. They now number closer to 6,000. He believes they can be very dangerous.
It's dangerous not so much because, a whole bunch of Klansmen get together in a room and plan to blow up a federal building or to murder 1,000 people with a bomb. So, it's these kind of lone wolf characters that get frustrated with their leaders, that break away, one day walk out of their house and start shooting.
With that in mind, at a gas station outside of Tupelo, the Grand Dragon appeared. He is also known as Stephen Howard. 31 years old, he says he's an Iraq War veteran. He comes with a loaded pistol on his hip and tells me he's got serious PTSD. We agree to follow him to a remote location where cell phone service is spotty, next to a trailer by the woods. They ask us not to photograph Howard's 11-year-old daughter, but she is there, as is his wife Nicole, presiding over the food. Between eating and target practice, there's work to be done. Howard and his Klan brothers are preparing this 16-foot cross.
This is just the torches. We use the torches for the cross lighting itself. You have to wrap them and you have to put some white baling wire around them.
Klansmen, behold the fiery cross.
When we come back, the burning cross that's terrorized people for generations, and the frightening message the Klan is sending in the era of a black president.
Barack Obama don't care about us. He don't care about America.
The air reeks of kerosene.
That's what we call it, Klan cologne.
We're at a KKK rally in the heart of Mississippi, a countryside still haunted by memories of lynchings and church bombings from decades ago. Pastor Wallace Hartsfield remembers those days only too well. He witnessed a black man dragged through the streets.
They shot the man and they hanged him and then used his body for target practice so as to teach black folk a lesson.
That's what we're going to need some help at.
But this is not the distant past. This is just last month in a secluded property in the woods where people have come to join the Grand Dragon Stephen Howard for what they call a cross lighting.
America is at turmoil, and we're lighting crosses to let people know that America is at turmoil right now.
This Klansman, who asked we not show his face for fear he'd be fired from his job, starts to get ready for the evening's rituals.
But you're wearing the robes of traditional terrorists, of traditional haters.
That's just the outlook that they want to give you. That ain't true. Not everybody was like that.
So you think this is what a good Christian man does?
Yeah, this is our Christianity. I mean, that's just plain and simple.
Howard says he's allowed us to come here to show us the new Klan is neither hate-filled nor violent. Yet what we heard and saw during our time with them suggests otherwise.
Black people and white people are nowhere related. In my opinion, I think black people evolved from animals. And I believe that we need to be separated. Whites and blacks need to be separated. I don't agree with race mixing. Let them set up their own state where they belong and give them their own homeland.
And if your daughter, when she got older, came home and said, I want to go out with a black boy,
I'd disown her. Wouldn't have nothing else to do with her for the rest of my life.
Because of who she loved.
No, it's not love. If you love somebody of your own race.
Who decreed that?
God decreed that. Jesus decreed that.
I thought Jesus said love each other.
Jesus said love your neighbor, but if you read the Bible...
As yourself.
You know, there's an argument to be made that by our covering the Ku Klux Klan, we play into their hand, we help them recruit. What do you make of that?
Every time you have a story on the front page of a local newspaper about a Klan rally or something along those lines, the Klan or that particular group does get a member or two. On the other hand, 99.9% people who read about that are essentially inoculated against them. I think it's actually harming them more than it's helping them in the end.
Back in Mississippi, as night falls, Steve and his wife, Nicole, tell us something stunning about Steve's 11-year-old daughter, who is here for all of the night's proceedings.
Your 11-year-old daughter has a robe?
Mm-hmm. She has her own robe.
So she was 8. And she chose?
She wanted it.
But you think at 11 she can understand?
I think she understands more than white people. Children are very perspective.
She has a beautiful robe.
She wants to be like her daddy.
That's the first time I've actually robed up, so it's a little bit big on me.
And now it's time for all members of the group to robe up.
Where you at, Mom?
I'm right here, son. I'll get you. I've read in some of the literature that there are some people who think that if Barack Obama is reelected, the storm, something they call the storm, is going to come.
Oh, it's going to happen.
What's the storm?
I fear it. War. And he's going to start it. He's going to start it. I fear it. I feel it. I feel it coming on. And it ain't just me. It's just, it's going to be another war in this United States of America. If he gets elected back to office, it's going to happen. If he gets 4 more years, Barack Obama will ruin this country. And white people will be in concentration camps. And if you don't believe white people can't be in concentration camps, people are sadly mistaken.
And his solution to avoid this supposed impending storm is an all-white South, where all blacks, Hispanics, and Jews are banned, given someplace else, he says, to live in America.
I want to make sure I understand you. If the goal is white separatism, separating the races, the only way to separate the races is using violence. You're not going to be able to just say nicely, please leave.
If they will peacefully go, then yeah. But if they won't peacefully go, that's the only way, is through violence. It's through making them go. That's it.
And you'd be willing to be part of that. It's a race war you're talking about, essentially.
The stories in the news today remind me of the sentiments of almost 50 years ago, when many young black people felt that policing for them was unfair.
During that time period, being black in America meant that you didn't walk down the street with the same sense of safety and the same sense of privilege as a white person.
There was absolutely no difference in the way the police treated us in Mississippi than they did in California. They may not have called you nigger every day, but they treated you the same way they did in Mississippi.
The police jump on you, beat you up, put the gun at your head. This is what we were going through on a daily basis.
I'm tired of it. I'll stay here as long as I have to.
Now, as then, the need for change is real. Nearly every black man I know has a story about an encounter with the police. I myself have been stopped, searched, and had a gun put to my head for no rational reason. One response to police brutality in 1966 was the founding of the Black Panther Party for self-defense.
We use the Black Panther as our symbol because of the nature of a panther. A panther doesn't strike anyone, but when he's assailed upon, that he'll back up first. But if the aggressor continues, then he'll strike out.
When I first met Huey and Bobby, they were in the process of forming an organization for primarily self-defense. We didn't plan to have a nationwide organization or anything like that. We were organizing, dealing with the problems in Oakland.
In 1966, California law allowed civilians to carry loaded weapons as long as they were not concealed, as do many states today. And the newly formed Black Panther Party took advantage of the law.
The California Penal Code Section 12020 through 12027, and also the Second Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property.
Huey said, we're going to carry our guns and we're going to follow the police. And if they stop someone, we're going to stop. We're going to maintain a legal distance. And we're going to observe these so-called law officers in the performance of their duty.
While you're coming around the corner, just stay facing the way you are.
We would stop. We would get out of the cars. We would walk up to the scene. Those who had rifles would carry them in the open, clearly visible.
We would stand at a distance where the police couldn't say they were interfering with their arrest or their detention of the individual, and make sure that there was no brutality.
The police were confronted by citizens who were not just voicing their opinions, but were armed.
They would take the weapon and pass it across like this, and it would sweep right over the officer.
No one would do anything until a policeman ejected around in the chamber. Then we would all eject rounds in the chamber, and all up and down the street you could hear this clackety clack, 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 clack.
And then when the traffic stop or the incident's over, they bring the weapon down across by you like this and get back in their car and drive off. It was pretty intimidating.
The Black Panther Party spread quickly, partly because young African Americans across the country had similar experiences with the police.
We would get calls from Atlanta, Nashville, Raleigh, North Carolina, from Washington, D.C., Bridgeport, Connecticut. Every city, small or large you can think of, wanted a chapter of the Black Panther Party.
There's no question that the Panthers were provocative, but there's also no question that law enforcement exaggerated the threat they posed and overreacted.
Do you feel the nation is in trouble?
I think very definitely it is.
Well, what is the answer?
The answer is vigorous law enforcement.
That's the only answer?
That's the only answer.
How about justice? You hear a lot about justice with law enforcement.
Justice is merely incidental to law and order.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation. Hoover said the Panthers have perpetrated numerous assaults on police and have engaged in violent confrontations throughout the country.
When Hoover identified the Black Panther Party as the #1 threat to the national security of the United States at a time when they're fighting in Vietnam, you know, of course that was crazy, but it was politically very effective. And it says to law enforcement at the local level, we can take the gloves off now. We don't have to respect the civil liberties, and we can go after them with everything we got.
Police say there was sniper fire throughout the early morning hours, so they moved in cautiously.
Police and Black Panthers clash in Houston, New Orleans, and other cities.
The Black Panther police
in the
shootout
pre-dawn hours in Chicago today,
Police and Negroes fought a pitched battle.
Obviously, we are nowhere near this today. In fact, we may be at a transformative moment. People of all ages and races are recognizing the problems with policing in black communities and are protesting.
Can't take it no more! Can't take it no more! Can't take it no more!
Attention, this is the police department.
Now, there is a chance for real change. But police departments and political leaders must not overreact as they did 50 years ago. They need to listen.
In March 2015, the federal government launched an investigation into a possible lynching in rural Mississippi. The event instigated new scrutiny towards hate crimes and the Ku Klux Klan. So what is the Ku Klux Klan? Well, it's an American hate group, also known as the KKK, that generally promotes the supremacy of the Christian Caucasian ethnicity. They operate primarily in the southern region and are infamous for using extreme torture and violence to oppress other races, especially African Americans. The group was founded in 1866 at the close of the American Civil War and the early days of the Southern Reconstruction. During this time, African American slaves became legally free, but many ex-slaveholders sought to maintain pre-Civil War conditions and intimidate African Americans into submission. From this time until around the Civil Rights era in the 1950s, racist Jim Crow laws were enforced exclusively by KKK vigilantes, and any person who tried to upset the status quo could be tortured and killed. Ku Klux Klan members originally were distinguished only by cross-like insignias and hoods or masks covering their faces. But in the early 20th century, KKK uniforms evolved into a standardized white costume with a peaked hood. This and the burning cross remained the two archetypal symbols